What is up, guys? Sente here, and it is time for the second game of my 30 days of Go. So I played this game yesterday. My videos will probably be a few days behind real time, just because life. But this was a really cool game, and I really have some cool key takeaways that I want to share with you guys. So first, again, we're going to talk about the opening. So if you remember the last game, the opening went fairly well. Very early middle game is kind of where things started getting a little bit dicey. I guess you could still call it the opening. It's kind of like right on that line, but this is like straight off the gate. Some fundamental things that we can learn here. So I played white. Okay, standard opening. He has dual 3/4s. Going to be a territorial game for him. Now he approaches, and I Tanuki. Now, I thought this was a very active, dynamic way of playing, and I had read out a sequence that he actually played my exact thing that I was thinking about doing, and so I thought this was a good thing that happened. But it turns out it wasn't so good. So we're going to see what happens. I approach. He simply responds. We do our Joseki. Great. Now he has Sente, and he follows up on this corner. I Hana under, which is the Joseki. He pulls back, and I defend in that like modern variation style. And he makes a nice large extension and establishes a position. So I thought this was cool because I thought, oh, all of these stones are working together, right? They're all, you can see they're kind of connected by 3 spaces, large knights, 2 spaces. Like, it seems synergistic. However, if we look at the points, so let's think about points first of all. We'll do a count, right? So we'll say 4, 10, this is about 19 points. And let's take these off. Black has 26 points. So between black's 2 corners and my one side, point-wise, he actually came out a little bit ahead. So this, in a way, it should have more or less been even, considering I had an initial starting cornerstone here and he approached my cornerstone. But there's something even a little bit more fundamental than this. And the more fundamental thing is that black's groups are very strong. Groups A and Group B are very strong. There's not much Aji that I can do. I'm going to try to invade here, but I'm going to get attacked. He can easily defend this group. It's a strong shape. And obviously we all know this shape. It's almost impossible to break into. So his groups are very strong groups that don't have a lot of Aji, like invasion Aji. However, according to Brandon, there are a multitude of invasion points, like here, here, or here, that black can use to stir up trouble, right? There's a forcing move. I'd have to go here. He'd make a weak group if he played here, so you could even entertain thoughts of... I mean, black's almost alive right now as it is, and he can still escape. So there's actually a lot of forcing moves and a lot of holes in these shapes, and this is what I sort of call an in-between shape. The groups are not strong enough to have no invasion Aji, but they're not large enough and open enough to be considered a moyo that you're going to get a lot of benefit if your opponent invades. This is the kind of shape where if your opponent invades, you just kind of lose points, and it's hard to find a good way to develop off of that. So if you're going to play for smaller groups, and if you're going to play a territorial game, these sorts of shapes leave a lot of invasion points. You have to be very careful of that. The fundamental mistake here is that I Tanuki'd. And when I Tanuki in this situation, I gave away Sente, right? If we think about just responding to here, in this way, I get Sente now. And I think we can all see that the biggest part of the board is over here. To attack, right? That's his open corner, and it's the most untouched. This side's a little bit uninteresting because of this stone. This has my corner on it, my stone on it, it's flexible. So if we play out the normal variation and see that I have Sente, we can see that the biggest area of the board is the lower right. So I should try to get Sente and get to that biggest area of the board as fast as possible. I thought what I was doing something dynamic. What actually ended up being was that I gave him more points and more solid groups. I did get here, but by that time I developed a kind of a subpar position that can be invaded later, and I really lost out in the late game, and it came back to bite me. So the first lesson here is to value Sente in the opening. If you see a simple way that you can grab Sente and get the next biggest part of the board, such as here, there is no problem. There's no problem or no reason why you can't do that. Sometimes playing simples is just like the correct way to play. So that's the first lesson, is to value Sente in the opening. If a simple variation gives you Sente and you can take a bigger part of the board, that's great. You don't need to go into crazy Tanuki stuff unless you want to try it, and then you can figure it out. And then the second lesson, stop it, Skype. And then the second lesson is be wary of these sort of in-between groups where they're not moyos because they're too small, but they're not solid groups like this group and like this group that don't have a lot of Aji associated with them and that have invasion points, right? So that's the first lesson I want to share with you. Second lesson comes a little bit later. I make a Joseki mistake here, bad result. So now we get to this situation. Black has two very strong groups right now, and he approached me. I already feel like I'm behind because I got a very bad result here, because I messed up on a Joseki, and this didn't seem as good as it used to be. So I thought I was behind, so I should try to start a crazy fight. So I pincered. This resulted in a counter pincer. We got a smother, we've got breaking through, we've got ladders, we've got nets, we've got sacrifices, we've got cutting points, we've got literally everything in this fight. And by the time it was all said and done, my position was even worse than it was before. I resigned shortly after trying to build this up a little bit. It got invaded, and then I resigned. But the flow of the game, essentially after this entire fight was settled, I wasn't able to kill anything. My group lives small, his group lives small, and he has a really nice set of 3 stones that he can probably eat up later. So I didn't really get back in the game with this attack. All I did was make my position worse. And so this is a very crucial concept in Go called, he described it as leaving the door open. So if we roll it all the way back to here when he did his initial approach move, my thoughts were, I'm behind, I should try to fight and stir up confusion to try to get the win back. But that's only when you're so far behind that playing normally, there's no Aji left for you to exploit and you will lose. This is too early in the game to really make that judgment call. Backing off was the correct choice here, because backing off, again, we're going to take it back, backing off gives you Sente, and you need to value that. If we go and play this variation, we have reductions here. We've got invasion using Aji that we can do here to reduce his points. We've just got straight up invasions. We've got a lot of options to sort of fight this out. And there might be a way to use Komi, maybe your opponent makes a mistake, and we can crawl back to something reasonable. The reason this is correct is because it does not eliminate any of the bottom Aji. It might feel like because Black got to play here, there's less Aji, but sometimes a reduction is enough. What I did was I forced everything to be settled. So keep in mind, when you choose to fight, and you choose to have an all-or-nothing skirmish fight because you feel you're behind, it's going to, one way or another, settle everything in that part of the board, which means there's not going to be any more Aji left. So it's kind of like a gamble. If you win the fight, great, you kill something huge and you do win the game. But if you lose or if nothing happens, you're even more behind than you were, and there's no potential left to actually fix the problem. So what I did was I closed the door on the bottom of this board by doing all of this. After this entire sequence has been played out, because it was kind of a one-way street, everyone had to respond, otherwise something was going to die. No one could Tanuki from this fight. Once this fight was all over, you can't do anything here anymore. There's no reductions, there's no this. This territory is now his territory, there's nothing I can do about it. This is his. There's nothing I can do about it. I didn't make many points on this side of the board. Nothing I can do about it. So I removed so much potential to equalize the game by trying to start a big confusing fight. And if we roll it back all the way here, the problem was I invited the fight in the first place instead of backing off, taking Sente, and trying to reduce count and maybe narrow the margins a little bit, and then make it more of a game. So that was the second lesson. If you're behind by a little bit and you feel like you're a little bit behind, try to not freak out and start a crazy fight unless you know there's absolutely no other way. If it's in this stage of the game and it's not the end game or the late middle game, and there's still things to attack. Oh, don't do that. But like there's still things to attack. Like this stone, you can still, you know, potentially build in a way like that. There's still places to invade if absolute worst comes to absolute worst. You can threaten an invasion here to get more points. So there's a lot of good moves left. So don't be so quick to start a fight, because when you start a fight that no one can Tanuki from, you're going to settle everything in that part of the board, and all of that Aji and all of your options and all of your choices that you might need to make to actually get the score even again will disappear, exactly like it did in this situation. And unless you kill something huge, odds are you're not going to be in a better place. In fact, your position is only going to be worse than it was before, if your opponent plays correctly, of course. So this is sort of the gamble style go, instead of like actually not gambling and like just trying to play the best moves. Just to kind of go. So those were two really great lessons that I learned. Value Sente in the opening. If you can find a sequence that gives you Sente to take a big part of the board, that's great. Strong groups that leave little Aji. If you can make strong groups with little Aji and your opponent has loose connections that have invasion points, that's good for you. Try to not have that happen if you're that person. And don't try to start a giant fight if you're a little bit behind. Keep your door open, keep your options open. And again, sometimes the simple response with Sente is very valuable, and you can be perfectly happy doing that and then trying to fight back slowly, as opposed to starting that all or nothing fight that may or may not win you the game. But if you don't kill something huge, you're probably not going to win the game. So those are some really cool ideas, very fundamental theoretical concepts. Hope you guys got some more from this. I'm excited to play my third game and to share what I learned with you guys then. So until then, I will see you on stream or on the internet somewhere, wherever I see you, and good luck in your games.